so I just spent the last 2.5 hours recording like 4 videos, and my SD card crashed. It wouldn't talk to my computer, and I went to check on all the saved files that I had on it for my camcorder. They're all gone. So here we are again, recording all these again. All right, so I got to get into the game because right now I'm not feeling all that excited about recording these. But here we go. Okay, last week or a couple weeks ago, I did a video on the top 10 quintessential live progressive rock albums. And as I mentioned in that video, I had like 50 albums to talk about, and I had to whittle down and whittle down and whittle down and whittle down. So I had like a short list of maybe 20 albums that I could talk about. And so I really wanted to talk about those guys. So it shouldn't come as a surprise that I have another 10. So I'm calling this one 10 more quintessential prog albums. The same stipulations to the first one. So if you haven't already watched the first one, check it out up here. But the same stipulations apply. First off, 1 album per artist. Otherwise, it'd just be a full ragamatag of like Dream Theater, King Crimson, and a whole bunch of other albums. So I wanted to give some artists that only have like maybe 1 or 2 live albums, or some newer bands, a little bit of a leg up to allow them to be on this list. Second is that I wanted to have a balance between new artists and old artists, and new in terms of like newer progressive rock stuff. So not just all the stuff from the 70s and 80s. I wanted to include bands from the 90s all the way until like now. So there's going to be a balance of about half and half. And finally, no albums that were released as like a fans only or a special edition or bonus discs on anything. These are official releases for the public to consume, that they didn't need to buy anything else. So with all that preamble, I'm going to start talking about the most requested and the album that was most talked about in my first review, and that's Exit Stage Left by Rush. And I gotta tell you, it was hard not to put that on that first little leg. But I mean, the thing about Rush is that they have so many amazing live albums. Like, which one do I want to choose? Do I want to go Rush in Rio? Do I want to go Different Stages? Do I want to go Show of Hands? Do I want to go All the World's a Stage? It was hard to choose just one as the quintessential, but honestly, at the end of the day, we all know that it's going to be Exit Stage Left, mainly because this was the album that really solidified the classic Rush album, starting from 2112 and ending off with Moving Pictures, because this was the album that was, or I guess this was the tour that they were touring with Moving Pictures. So you've got the classics from that album, Tom Sawyer, YYZ, but you also have some of those deeper cuts like from Hemispheres of the Tree and the last track from Hemispheres. I can't even try to pronounce that one. You also have Natural Science and Jacob's Ladder and Xanadu and Spirit of the Radio. And so there's so many quintessential Rush tracks off of this album that if this is probably the perfect place to start with Rush if you were to start with any of their albums. And again, Rush is the type of band that you really need to listen to live. So without talking too much more about it, that's where I'm going to leave it for Exit Stage Left from Rush. Next up, we come to a new album, and this one's coming to us from Moon Safari with their Gettysburg Address. This was the album that they were touring Lover's End. So it has Lover's End Part 1 as well as A Kid Called Panic, kind of in the midpoint of the first disc. It also starts off with the explosive track that is Moonwalk. And just how explosive it is, how powerful it is. And the album ends with the massive 31-minute epic that is The Other Half of the Sky. I've been saying that is a lot lately. So what I particularly love is the energy, the drive, and Moon Safari is the kind of band that uses so many different harmonizations between all the different members that you would think that they wouldn't be able to capture it on a live recording, but they're able to prove them wrong on this live recording because they produce the songs brilliantly in this area. I love some of the deeper cuts on this, like the track from their first disc, which is the Traveling to America one, Dance Across the Ocean, as well as Yesker's Farm. So they've got a good smattering of tracks on here. Next one, I'm cheating a little bit. We're talking about a Peter Gabriel album. I featured Genesis, but I figured it's removed enough so that I can talk about Peter Gabriel. And Peter Gabriel has put out so many brilliant live performances. Live in Athens, Peter Gabriel Plays, Secret World Live, but I'm talking about Growing Up Live. This is the album that he was touring with his Up album. It was his final studio album, official studio album, right? Like I don't really qualify A New Blood and Scratch My Back and I'll Scratch Yours, all that official, but I still really enjoyed this one. I love what he's able to do with some classic tracks like Here Comes the Flood and Salisbury Hill, as well as his big tracks like Sledgehammer, In Your Eyes, and Red Rain. But what I love is some of those deeper cuts like Downside Up and the tracks from Growing Up, such as Darkness, Blue Sky with the Blind Boys of Alabama, and Signal to Noise, all captured brilliantly. And if you can, try to find their the actual physical DVD, because watching the actual stage presentation adds a whole new dimension, because Peter Gabriel's an artist and he uses anything as his canvas, including the stage. So highly recommend checking that one out. Next up, from a new band of Haken, it's their only live album, which is Live, I guess L-1VE. I love this one. I think it's a great addition or like introduction to the band as well. This was their 10th anniversary tour, so they were still kind of touring a little bit with Affinity, but the thing that I love is that they didn't heavily weigh on Affinity to help them produce this. You know, you still have the bigger tracks off of that album like Affinity, 1985, and The Architect. You have a couple ones like The Infinite Knot and Red Giant. But what I love is some of the deeper tracks. You have the Aqua Medley on this, which is a medley of their first album. And I love when a band is able to recontextualize and reinvent older tracks to bring into a new light. And I love all the things that they do from The Mountain as well. They have The Cockroach King being the big track off of that. Falling Back to Earth and Paradelia, which are found on the bonus disc, as well as Crystallize, the big, 19, 20-minute track. Ending it all off with Visions, the 20-minute epic from that album. It's just brilliant. And I love the energy and the raw oomph that we have from this band. So very good and really well done for those guys. So yeah, go and check this out. I think it's a great introduction to the band, and it showcases their new take on progressive metal music. Going from there, we're going to a classic band of Pink Floyd, and Pink Floyd has a number of great live albums, but we already know which one I'm going to be talking about. It's the last one, their final swan song of Pulse. This was the one that they were touring with the Division Bell, and I love it. I mean, they have the entirety of Dark Side of the Moon kind of ending off the album with Run Like Hell and Comfortably Numb being the two encore songs on that. And I love that they're able to showcase a number of tracks from their later career, specifically from Momentary Lapse of Reason as well as the Division Bell, but they're not afraid to go really far back in their career with Astronomy. They also have my all-time favorite rendition of Shine On You Crazy Diamond, where they incorporate parts 9, I think it is, back into the fold after they go through like parts 1 through 7. So I love the fact that they're able to like bring that back in and kind of cap off the song overall. A brilliant work, and this is, coming from a band that's like 30 years into their career, still showing that they're able to stay on top. I mean, we already saw that with the last one when I incorporated David Gilmour's album, but again, there's this magic that's been captured on this one. All right, going to another contemporary artist, we're looking at Leprous with their live album of Live at Rockefeller Music Hall. And Leprous was one of those very special progressive rock and metal outfits that really showcased the melodic metal, this gothic metal. And I also feel like this was them at the peak of their career. They had just released The Congregation, and this was also the one that I was lucky and blessed enough to see actually be performed. So I actually got to see this show. And so a lot of it was me reminiscing of the show itself. I love the smattering of songs. Not only do they choose quite a number of tracks from the congregation, but they go back to Bilateral and to Cole, and even a few from Tall Poppy Syndrome. Just a great smattering of tracks to really introduce people to the concept of Leprous. It's so tight, it's so gnarly, it's so dark. Can't help but love it. Can't help but love it. You got to check it out if you haven't already. It's a great introduction to the Leprous catalog if you're into this more gothic style of progressive metal music. Next up, we're looking at another Genesis band member of Stephen Hackett with Live at Hammersmith. This was the first album off of the second Genesis Revisited leg. He already did one Genesis Revisited, and this was kind of like the second Genesis Revisited, and this was the first live album of that stint, and I think he has like 4 or 5 out. This is still my favorite of his. I think it's the most tight, the most making sure this could work, so there's a lot more skin in the game for this one. I love how they chose so many great tracks, and the track listing is so good. Like the set list is huge, and they're still able to end it off with Supper's Ready. And I love the guest stars that we have on here. I love how they're able to add this new dimension to each of the tracks. So this is my favorite live performance from Stephen Hackett, and one that I will turn to again and again and again when I want some really good reinterpretations of classic Genesis tracks. Probably to the most recent addition to this. This was released at the end of last year. This was Lost and Found from Riverside. This was the one that was kind of lost and then found again from Love, was it Love, Hate in the Time Machine, or Love, Fear in the Time Machine? And this was the last live performance with Petrov on guitar. May rest in peace. This is also, much like the Leprous one, the one that I got to actually see when they came to Toronto. So it has a very special place in my heart, and I love the fact that they have so many classic tracks from Rapid Eye Movement, from Second Life Syndrome, and from ADHD. And I also love that they're able to pick out my favorite tracks from some of my lesser favorite ones, like some of the tracks that they have from the New Generation sequence, whichever one that was. And I think this is a great introduction to Riverside as a band for their meaty, really psychedelic metal styles of music. I love this album of theirs, and I think it's my favorite live album from them. And it really is a quintessential progressive rock live outfit. So have a listen if you haven't already to it. Coming into the final two, we've got two classics. The first up is from King Crimson, and King Crimson is just a prolific band when it comes to live outpours. These guys are nonstop, especially now in their later career. It seems like every other year they're putting out a new live one. And it was really hard to figure out what was a quintessential live recording from King Crimson. Like, do I want to include USA, or do we want to go for one of their more contemporary ones that have quite a listing of their back catalog? And I chose the latter. And even here, it was hard to decide because, as I mentioned, they're putting out a new one every other day. But I chose Live in Chicago in 2017 for 2 reasons. The first up is that this was the recording that I got to see. And the second up is just the smattering of deep cuts that they included on here. Of course, you have the fan favorites like Starless, 21st Century Schizoid Man, In the Court of the Crimson King, Lark's Tongue and Aspect Part 2. But you also have some of the deeper cuts, like it starts off with Lark's Tongue and Aspect Part 1. You also have Circus and the Lizard Suite, not the whole thing, the second half of it. But you also have Islands and Sailor's Tales. But you also have some more like later stuff, like Level 5, Radical Action 2, The Construction of Light, and I guess Indiscipline, but like some like really newer stuff that they normally probably wouldn't have played. So I love the fact that it's a great balance of their overall discography, and I love the energy that the band brings to the forefront in this entire recording, because it's not like picking the best one from a whole bunch of different shows. This is just one show. So I particularly enjoyed that. Final one here is Marilyn. I would be remiss if I didn't include something from Marilyn, because Marilyn has a lot of live albums, and honestly, my favorite one is still their first, A Recital of the Script. It's the one that has the Market Square Heroes EP, as well as their entire, Script of a Jester's Tear album, their first album. And it's just that. And so you can see how hungry they are. You can see how how much teeth there is in the lyrics, where, you know, they're seeing what had happened to the music industry and turning their back on any kind of progressive rock and just being enraged by that. And so I really love their presentation. I love how in it to win it they are, and I love the energy that they provide. And if you can, try to find the DVD, because seeing Fish's performance on here, again, much like Peter Gabriel, adds a whole nother dimension to it. And it's also the fact that they include all of Grendel in it, which is, you know, their big 18 to 20 minute big epic. It is a little bit of a Supper's Ready retread, but it's still fantastic. So there you go. Those are 10 more quintessential progressive rock live albums. What did you guys think? What are some more albums that you want me to cover on this little segment? I've already got another 10 that I really want to talk about that I wasn't able to include on here, but let me know of some of the ones that I've missed by commenting down below. If you like what you see and you want to help support me, consider donating to my Patreon. Even $1 a month is, you know, it really goes a long way, and you'll get your name in the end credits, so that's kind of nice. And yeah, I think that's about it. So thank you guys so much for watching. As always, you guys are definitely the best. And until next time, notes out.